In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, Krysten Peek and I, we are going to share our thoughts. Well, it's mostly going to be her thoughts. We're going to talk about the 2025 Nike Hoop Summit roster. The roster was released yesterday, so I want to hear Krysten's opinion on the roster. She's going to give us a breakdown on a few of the players, and of course, we have to talk about who is not on the team. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, along with my co-host, Krysten Peek, who is on her way to cover another big high school tournament. And before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first start to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. It keeps going up. $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also, check out the Locked On newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. It is your favorite Locked On NBA podcast in a newsletter form, delivered right to your inbox. It is your one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage. And lastly, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because we are your daily source for NBA draft content. And we even cover the NBA draft in advance, because this episode we're going to talk about some of the names that are going to dominate the 2026 NBA draft. But before we get into the episode, where are you headed? I know you're always on the road. You have some big high school tournament that you're probably going to. What's on your agenda?
It's literally one of my favorite high school events of the year, Rafael. It's the Hoop Hall Classic in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's my least favorite destination to go in January because, it's always – the weather is always a toss-up. Last year, I got stuck in the airport in Detroit for 2 days. And so, you never know what you're going to get. But I love the basketball there. It's a showcase. I'm calling for the games. And it's also a great opportunity to sit down with these players, find out if the recruitment is still open, what are teams, what are they looking at? So it's literally one of my favorite events. I just hate the weather.
Yeah, flying east, Midwest at this time of year, it's almost like you have to at least be mentally prepared for a day of being stuck, because if you're connected in Chicago, Detroit, anywhere in those cities, it's going to be tough. Who are some of the names that you'll be seeing at this event?
I'll be seeing the Boozer twins, Cameron and Caden Boozer. I'll also be seeing IMG for the first time this year. So Darius Acuff, who also made the team, and prolific prep with Darryn Peterson, who is glaringly absent from this roster. I know you have who's missing, at the end there, but we can get into why he's not on the roster later on. But a lot of high profile players. This is a NBA certified event. So a lot of NBA scouts and GMs, assistant GMs will be making their way to Springfield College, which, by the way, is an amazing event facility. The court is old. They haven't redone the gym. Some of the best high school games I've seen at this event. I remember when Jason Tatum played Markelle Fultz and JT had 45, Markelle had 38. So there's always, some sort of magic that happens at Hoop Hall.
Yeah, I have to make it out there one day. I've only been to the one in Arizona. I haven't been
out Hoop Hall West,
Yeah, I haven't been out to the one in Springfield. All right, let's talk about the 2025 Nike Hoop Summit. The rosters were released yesterday. Actually, we were talking on the phone, right, when I got them. So I'll mention some of the names: Darius Acuff Jr., Nate Ament, Cameron and Caden Boozer, Mikel Brown Jr., Chris Sanak, AJ Dybantsa, Jalen Harrelson, Jasper Johnson, Nick Kamina, Malachi Marino, and Koa Peek. Those are the names that made this roster. So let's actually, you know what? We're not going to go in order of the rundown. Who is missing? You kind of teased it a little bit, but who did not make this team?
Darryn Peterson, he's the number 2 player in the country, maybe the number 2 player, regardless of class, ahead of Tyron Stokes. But he's not playing. And I just need to say something about this roster. This is a Nike Team USA event. And it's Team USA against Team World. And when we look about last year, and AJ Dybantsa actually played for Team World last year as a junior. So when we see the construction of this roster, I saw a lot of comments where, where's Tyron Stokes? Where's Brandon McCoy? This is typically 95% of the time for high school seniors. The reason why AJ played last year is because he's one of the best players. And he played for Team World. They announced it when he was in Jamaica getting dual citizenship. That's also when they announced his Nike partnership. And so that's why he was the exception to the rule. So that's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is Darryn Peterson he plays on the Adidas circuit. He's been invited countless times to Team USA events. I've only seen him play one time. He didn't play for U17 World Cup team that was over in Istanbul last year. He didn't play for U16s. He was hurt. So there is some politics that goes into this, like any team that's formed. It happened with Team USA this past summer. I know a lot of people thought Donovan Mitchell should have been a part of that team, but if you're not Trae Young, like if you are not showing up to these Team USA events, then that's going to be put into consideration. So when we look at this entire roster, if we're looking just at the rundown players that you have, Rafael, AJ Dybantsa, U17s, Boozers, U17s, Darius Acuff won a gold medal with U18s. So did Nate Ament, Peek won a gold medal with U17s. Mikel Brown won a gold medal with U18s. Even if we look at, Malachi Moreno, and people are like, who? He was one of the standouts at the U18 mini camp, and he's a center. So you got to look at positions as well. And Nick Kamenia, people are like, who? Well, first of all, he's going to Duke, so you should get to know his name. And he won a gold medal with the 3-on-3 U18 team this year. So these are all players that have invested into Team USA. And that's why we're seeing some of the snubs that people are considering when the outrage that Darryn Peterson didn't make this roster. And don't worry, you guys, the week before he'll go off at McDonald's, which is an Adidas event, and another great honor for these high school seniors.
So one of the questions I got, and I'll let you answer it because nobody knows it better than you, is Mikel Brown has been an Adidas guy. He's been on the Adidas circuit. He got in. So one of the questions people were asking me was, how was Mikel Brown on this team when I think he even has an Adidas NIL deal right now.
Correct. Yeah. Mikel Brown is on the team because he won a gold medal with the USA U18 team this past summer. So he invested in that team. He also showed up to the USA basketball training camp as a senior when we saw a lot of players kind of dip out this year from the senior position. Krysten Peek was also there for official visits so they could go to big time football games. So they are keeping tabs as who is committing to USA basketball from U16s all the way to U18s.
So with Peterson, he played at the U16 Americas, right? In the summer of 2023, but he just hasn't played since then. And you think that's the reason why?
Correct.
It's funny.
I do. Like it's not, you can't say anything other than that because he's obviously good enough to be, included with these group of players. So yeah, that's the only reason I see.
It just kind of adds another chip on his shoulder, probably. I mean, I think he probably understands why, but from everything I've heard about him is that his competitive fire is off the charts, and this adds another chip. Funny thing, before we go to break, I was at a Mavericks game a couple nights ago. A parent walks by me, says, "Hey, I listened to your podcast," and he says, "Darryn Peterson is the number one prospect in the country." He says he would take Darryn over AJ, which, that's debatable right now. The conversation is starting to get louder, but that's just going to make the 2026 NBA.
Can I just say one more thing before you go to break? I'm sorry. I just thought of this. Typically, we see Nike Hoop Summit, the event where a lot of the GMs show up because it's at the Nike facility. It's very well done. They can see international guys. But now that Darryn is probably only going to be playing in McDonald's, I think we're going to see an influx of GMs wherever McDonald's is this year. Go to check them out. Okay, that's all.
Interesting. All right.
Yep.
Up next, we're going to talk about why Nike Hoop Summit is important for these prospects. I want to hear Krysten's take on her favorite Nike Hoop Summit, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the players. When I heard Skims was making underwear for men, I'll be honest, the first name that came to my mind was Kim Kardashian. Why is Kim Kardashian making underwear for men? But after doing a little research, I found out that the Skims men's line offers something for everyone from boxer briefs to classic briefs, and they are all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. And Skims underwear are perfect for the active lifestyle. They move with your body, they never lose their shape. They stay in place all day long. So whether you are working out or running errands, Skims are comfortable and reliable. The lightweight material is amazing, and it feels like you have absolutely nothing on. So shop skims.com/locked on, or you can go to Skims store. Again, if you're looking for some good, reliable underwear, go to Skims Men's at skims.com/locked on NBA or at Skims stores. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Again, skims.com/locked on NBA. All right, second segment. So AJ Dybantsa, we've talked about him. We've talked about the Boozer brothers. What are your thoughts on seeing them on the same team? It's probably, well, more than likely, it could be the last time we see them on the same team. We've seen them go against each other for years. We've seen them play on the same team for Team USA, and they absolutely obliterated the competition. So does the world team even have a chance, even though we don't even know who's on the roster, but does the world team even have a chance with these two guys on the team, or three?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is going to be it's just going to be a bloodbath for whoever. They can try to get whoever they want on this world team. But if we've learned anything from the U17 FIBA World Cup, where remember they beat almost every team by an average of 60 points, then I don't see any sort of competition with whoever they bring in.
And that was without Darryn Peterson.
Yes, that was without Darryn Peterson. Last year, Team USA, it was very competitive in the first half, and then Team USA kind of took over. But it was fun to see AJ Dybantsa and VJ Edgecombe and Nolan Traore on that same team. And so these are kind of the first glimpses for us stateside where we get to see the international talent a year out of their draft availability. There's only a couple instances. It's this event, it's basketball without borders, and I think that's it stateside.
Yeah. For competitive reasons, I was hoping AJ would be on the world team again. And I understand why he was on the team last year, and you broke it down. And then it's probably hard to put him on the world team after he played for USA basketball last summer. But just for balance, I would have loved to see him even try to carry a team, because the world team last year was pretty strong with VJ and AJ and Nolan. So for those that don't understand, why is the Hoop Summit so important for these prospects and for NBA scouts and executives?
I would say the two marquee events for any goal, for any high profile high school player, is McDonald's All-American, Nike Hoop Summit, Jordan Brand. Those three are the ones that these players are working for that honor to make and play in this game. And they know what's at stake. They realize this is the next stepping stone in their career before college, before maybe the NBA draft. And so they need to make a lasting impression. And we've seen players do that before, or we've seen players disappear. And then, scouts are like, okay, well, he still needs some work. He still needs some work. And we've seen players disappear, like 2 years ago with Zachary Richeche. He didn't do anything and then had a great year over in France and was the number 1 pick this year, And so is that going to happen this year? Absolutely not, because last year's draft was a bit of a weaker draft class. But it is so important for them to take this seriously as a business trip, especially when you're getting GMs in the building and they might be seeing these players for the first time.
And what's interesting about last year, I was there. It was my first Nike Hoop Summit. I remember talking to you out in the hallway there. Molly Walsh struggled. He looked off. Asa Newell dominated him. Just kicked his butt. And right now, I would say Molly Walsh would go ahead of Asa Newell in the draft. Nolan Traore, I thought he looked phenomenal. I thought he looked really good, but his stock is a little down right now, even though he had a really strong performance yesterday. But like you said with Richeche, doesn't look good at all. Looks out of place. Goes back, has a strong year, ends up being the number 1 pick. Molly Walsh looked absolutely, just lost. He looked like he was a couple years away. And if I'm not mistaken, he's probably made 17 of his last 21 shots over the last 3 games and has looked really good. And I think he is a candidate to be a top 5 pick. So with that being said, how much does these the practices count more than the games? Because I heard Molly Walsh looked good in practices. Which holds more weight, the practices or the games?
The practices, 100%. And that's just because you're getting NBA level coached, and they're running a lot of NBA centric drills. And they're doing that purposefully because they know that the NBA scouts and executives are there. So you're seeing these players in an NBA style environment, if you want to call it that, and seeing how they respond to that. And PNR drills and 3-on-3, 3-on-4, 4-on-3, that sort of thing. So it's a very serious thing, especially Nike Hoop Summit, and same with McDonald's. I want to say, and I don't understand why they have it as a closed scrimmage at McDonald's. I have a problem with this. I've had a problem with this for years. It's a closed scrimmage for media. We're not allowed there. The NBA scouts and executives and family members are allowed there. But then they put the scrimmage on TV. So why am I paying for a hotel room in Houston, Texas, out of pocket, when the freaking scrimmage is 5 minutes away, but I can't go? I got to watch it on TV. I got a real problem with that. But anyways, practices matter way more than the All-Star game.
Well, that's why you have to have credentials as a scout for some events and media for others.
The problem is the media people, they all know that I'm media. So I how do I disguise that? I don't know. But
I've found a way to get a balance in both, because if you are media in summer league, it's a lot cheaper.
Yes.
than if you're doing scout or agency for summer league. But I wanted to ask you about the scrimmages. What are they looking for? To my knowledge, I would assume processing speed, how well or how fast guys process information, but how much are the measurables? How important is, these guys been measured? Because, the high schools, colleges do it too. They can kind of fudge the stats a little bit, but how important is it for the NBA teams to see how the players measure?
I don't think they measure at McDonald's. I don't know if they measure at Hoop Summit. I think they might.
Remember last year at Hoop Summit, the reason I'm asking is because remember there was such a big discrepancy with, I think it was VJ Edgecombe's height last year.
Yeah. I think USA Basketball measures all players at all their events. I don't think McDonald's does. I don't think they care. But in terms of is it glaring? I think scouts and executives have been watching the game enough to know when you're looking at Cooper Flagg and he's listed at 6'9", you're looking at him and you're like, maybe 6'7.5", maybe 6'8". Like you can kind of do the eye test, but to have that confirmed and official measurements at Hoop Summit is probably very helpful and something that they monitor, particularly on the weight side, because remember, Derek Queen was out of shape, overweight at McDonald's. And so to see him work on that and really hone in on that, I mean, that kind of shows the opposite. That's showing NBA teams like, listen, I know this is a problem for me at the end of my high school career when I was just coasting and having a good time. And now I'm serious about it.
And when you're Derek Queen, you can coast when you have Cooper Flagg and Liam.
Everyone, yeah,
guys on your team, and you're just running through the competition. All right, up next, I want to again just get a little bit of a rundown on some of the players. I want to ask Krysten, how does this roster rank against others and her most memorable Nike Hoop Summit? Stay tuned. All right, let's talk about Robinhood, because with Robinhood Gold, you can enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. And the privileges of the privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get a 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. I'm going to say that again. 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national saving average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. And the new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on your IRA contributions, sign up at robinhoodgold.com/gold. And the new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Now, investing is risky, and the 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at a $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. All right, last segment. So let's just talk about the players. We haven't done a lot about the players. In just a short sentence or two, AJ Dybantsa. For those that are listening for the first time, who is AJ?
AJ is the number 1 player in the senior class. I think the number 1 player in all of high school basketball. I think he's the favored to be the number 1 pick in the 2026 draft. 6'9" wing, has the quickest hesitation move I've ever seen. Budding 3-point jumper, and just loves to finish at the rim.
All right, the Boozer twins.
Boozer twins, Cameron and Caden Boozer. Cameron is a 6'9" forward. Caden is a 6'3", 6'4"-ish, maybe point guard. Cameron is the do-it-all big, has a fantastic pick and pop game, is so competitive, probably one of the best scorers and two-way players in the class. And Caden is probably the best facilitator, has great high IQ, and loves to facilitate and reads defenses very well.
The player that I want to see the most probably is Darius Acuff. Phenomenal scorer, had a big-time summer last year. He is committed to Arkansas. Right now, Arkansas is like 0-4 in conference play or something like that. And it's going to be very interesting the rest of Arkansas season. If everybody's not playing well, who all comes back. But Darius Acuff is a player that is expected to be one and done. What are your thoughts on Acuff?
Darius is a bucket getter. This dude can get a bucket downhill. He can get a tough step back 3. He's so competitive. And, he's one of those, I call him a gamer, because you see him in practice, you see him in different camp or drill settings, and he blends in. He doesn't really stand out. And then the second the whistle goes off, he is all in, and he is just everywhere on the court and is a bucket getter for sure.
Yeah, he's the player that I'm personally looking forward to seeing the most, because I'm just curious to see how this whole Arkansas dynamic works. I know we had a debate about it maybe a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
But if they're not winning, guys may end up possibly coming back. All right, Nate Ament, we talked about him before. I know you are really high on him. I've even heard some people believe that he should be in the mix as a potential number one pick, a dark horse candidate, but some believe that he has a puncher's chance simply because they feel like he may have the most room to grow and to develop. What are your thoughts on Nate Ament?
Nate Ament, I think he's a 7-footer. If he's not 7 feet, he's very close to it, 6'11". Probably the most versatile big in high school basketball. Runs the floor extremely well, is another competitor. I mentioned this in a podcast earlier, but at the Slam Classic game where nobody takes it seriously, AJ Dybantsa and Nate Ament were the only players taking it very, very, very seriously. So anytime you have that competitive edge and you still have so much room to grow to your game, you're right. The upside is insane for Nate Ament.
Do you think he has a chance to be a top 5 pick?
Top 5, yes. Number 1, absolutely not.
Yes. So, like I said, I've seen some say they think that he has a puncher's chance, and the case that they made was legitimate. Is that you look at AJ, so polished, physically ready, Cameron Boozer, physically ready, Darryn Peterson already has an NBA ready frame in a sense, but they're like, if Nate were stronger, then they think that he could have the same type of buzz. But anyway, that's a debate. Krysten Peek, and this is a player that does not have any issues as far as physicality and is definitely college ready. Describe his game.
He's a complete unit. Every single male in his family has played football at the highest level, whether that's the NFL or a high major D1 place. Koa is still uncommitted. He's from Arizona area, so people are thinking it's going to be a matchup between Arizona State and Arizona to stay home. His brother plays football right now at Arizona State. But with Koa Pete, I mean, when he's 15 years old, he led the Adidas or SSB in scoring in the U17 category playing for Compton Magic. So this is someone that has been on everyone's radar since the time he was a freshman in high school, but he's found ways to develop his game a little bit better. Remember when he was younger, he was a little flat-footed. He didn't have that burst of speed, and we've seen him work on that. His jumper is still a work in progress, but definitely someone to watch, definitely someone that NBA scouts have been watching for a very long time.
Yeah, no, he is physically ready for college. I mean, he has a better body than some NBA players.
All right. Koa Pete, 6'8", 235.
Like, I mean, I mentioned it before. 6'8", 235. That's a LeBron James physique. He had that when he was a junior in high school. I mean, those are like, give or take an inch, Chris Webber measurements.
Yeah.
And this was in high school. All right, let's switch to Mikel Brown, a player that I really enjoy watching. I first saw him at OTE last year. He's committed to Louisville. We talked about him a little bit as an Adidas guy playing in this Nike event. What are your thoughts on Mikel Brown Jr.?
I love Mikel. I mean, I remember when I first saw him as a freshman, I said, man, he reminds me of like a mini Trae Young. Just the way he shot with confidence off the dribble, the way he's so crafty, and he's really tightened his ball handling skills, but his decision making, especially as a ball handler and getting in the lane, whether that's dishing off pocket passes or pulling up for a mid-range jumper, he's really improved. I want to say the only discrepancy to his game is just his size. He's listed at 6'3", but he's probably closer to that 6'2" range. So, but he is more than well deserving of, this honor of being on the Hoop Summit team.
Yeah, I was just watching a game a couple of days ago where him and Darryn Peterson went heads up, and Darryn had 39, but Mikel had 29 points, and Prolific ended up winning. All right, here's a question for you. Where does this group rank amongst some of the other really strong Hoop Summit classes?
This is, if not the best, it's going to be talked about as one of the best. And remember, we didn't get to see the Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes Hoop Summit year because it was COVID and they canceled the game. So I think that would have been a really fun class. The Anthony Edwards year was really, really fun. He put on a show. But in terms of talent across the board, I think we're going to see very similar to what we saw from the U17s. And I don't want to say like it's going to be a blowout, even though if they were playing at what they're capable of, it probably would be a blowout. But maybe they'll make it more competitive for the fans that come to see them. But it's going to be a show of high speed, a lot of scoring, and just you're going to see the versatility in the bigs with this team. It's not the back to the basket centers that we're used to seeing, especially at the high school and college level. These are versatile bigs in Malachi Moreno and Nate Ament. So they could play 5-out stretch and run, some flex and pin downs for them, pick and pops, just different variations that NBA scouts want to see how they can be plugged in for an NBA roster.
So I'm actually surprised. I thought you were going to say 2016. So that was the Josh Jackson.
Jared gosh, that was a fun year.
De'Aaron Fox, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Harry Giles, Lauri Markkanen, Thon Maker.
I'm not thinking of rosters off the top. I was just thinking the last 4 years, but I wasn't there. I didn't go to that game, but I remember watching that. Yes.
Yes, to me that was and I forgot DeAndre Ayton was on the world team. So the world team had Ayton and Markkanen. Giannis's younger brother was on that team. So to me that was when I think of Nike Hoop Summit, I think of that particular class and how strong that class was. That was a fun class. That was when I first, kind of got on the AAU scene with that group. So I will always remember that class. Well, yeah, I guess we'll have to wait to see who is on the world roster. I mean, right now, the player that I probably would want to see the most from the world roster would be Hanson. The world roster would be Hanson Yang, the 7'2" center from China, who's absolutely phenomenal. If you're not familiar with Hanson Yang, just go to YouTube, type in his name, and there were some plays where he absolutely dominated Alex Sarr and Ethan Amansa in a FIBA tournament a couple years ago. I don't know if he'll be able to play it, but to me, he's the one guy that I would love to see because he's just a matchup nightmare due to his physicality and size. But even then, I mean, I can't see a world where there's enough talent to even compete with this roster. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Again, always fun having Krysten on. Be sure to check out the Locked On newsletter at lockedondaily.com. All right, once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day, and we are out of here.